That's one small step for man.
AI rebels, please.
Giant leap for mankind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the AI Rebels podcast. As always, I am your co-host, Spencer.
And I'm your co-host, Jacob. And we are very excited to have Dalan Winbush here with us from the company I'm currently working for, Nasuni. He's the CIO there. Thank you for coming on, Dalan. We're excited to have you.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be great. Not just because you're also from Nasuni, which is close to my heart, but I think you just have a very unique background that we haven't had a whole lot of representation of on the podcast yet, where you are involved at a much more enterprise level. For our listeners, quick background for Dalan. He former VP of IT at Comcast. He was CIO at QuickBase, now CIO at Nasuni. Lots of other side ventures scattered throughout there. And now I'm curious, Dalan, what's the big, you're here at Nasuni, what's the goal? Like, what are you hoping to achieve in this new role, relatively new role at Nasuni?
Yeah, that's a tall order because there's a lot of things I do want to do. I mean, obviously there's the elephant in the room, which is AI. Then there's always, just table stake, foundational transformation, things that we're doing on the data side. So I would say, there's a convergence here. Number one, what I really want to do while I'm here is make sure that we have a clean foundation around data, both unstructured and structured, and not only to bring insights into the business that are accurate, but they also can provide narratives and insights that, across the different parts of the business, specifically go to market, which is critical to the business. But the convergence of doing that, layer on top of that with AI and agentics, you can't have a good AI story if you don't have a data story, right? Mm-hmm. So those two things to me are kind of the holy grail of what I want to come and do. And the outcome of that isn't just checking off the box and saying, yes, we now have accurate data, that gives you good, analytical narratives, or just say, hey, we just released a bunch of AI tooling, but are we truly changing how we do business? Right. Yeah. And that's from an operational excellence perspective, our customer retention, our customer intelligence, growth, revenue and growth. Can we really pinpoint exactly in those leading indicators, lagging indicators, that the capabilities that we are deploying are truly influencing the way that we do business? And hopefully that transcends to, transcends back to how we sell, who we sell to, increase the revenue, better customer retention, better customer service, happier customers. So having that blast radius, that's the influence I want to have.
Yeah, I love that. I'm curious, and this is a problem we have heard a lot about, is how do you measure that blast radius? How do you measure the impact that is specifically associated with the efforts around agentics, around AI, around these different things? What processes are you putting in place?
Yeah, so you'll hear me say this quite often. Technology is still technology, right? Doesn't matter if it's AI or if it's we're deploying new collaboration tools, right? AI has to be able to influence the business in a measurable way. This is that article, the 95% of enterprises fail. That was a MIT article. Mm-hmm. I kind of I was not a proponent of that article at first, but when I started really digging into my world, my peers in the market, understanding what that article was really trying to highlight, that 95% is based off of not having targets, measurable targets of how that technology is actually impacting the business. Adoption cannot be a target. Usage cannot be a target, right? Just because you have 100% of your population using ChatGPT to either synthesize information, creating emails, all that stuff is great. But what value is it bringing back to the business, right? How do you actually measure productivity? And it's really difficult because you can also have productivity leakage, right? So if you do have a great utility that's in place, or I use ChatGPT to get through all of my emails, throughout the day, Am I actually going to do more work, or am I going to actually take off and go, hit 18 holes, right? I personally would like 18 holes, but
Yeah.
that's the productivity leakage, right? So if you actually translate that back to, let's call it, how many meetings can you set from an SDR perspective, within that first stage of a sales funnel, right? Maybe your goal and your KPI was X, but now that you have, some AI utilities that can help accelerate that, maybe research and meeting prep and why Nasuni creates an opportunity where you can actually shrink that 40 or hours of research down to 30 seconds. And now you can go create a meeting even faster. Maybe it's X times X now, right? So I think raising the bar on these metrics, raising the bar on some of these tangible things is going to help us shape what we can measure. So it has to be part of a business measurement. Productivity cannot be it. Usage, adoption, that cannot be it.
I think that's a really common trend emerging right now. Is I feel like people are kind of moving out of the concept of AI as like this magical box that they throw things into and answers come out, and starting to really critically evaluate how to use it. And it's ironic that the headlines are around how many people are failing at using it, because to me, I think it's more those are more highlighting that the use so far has not been intentional, if that makes sense. I really think that a lot of people have not thought hard about how to actually use the tools. And we're hearing, we've heard exactly that from a lot of our guests recently. It's a very interesting trend.
Yeah. And what you just mentioned too is you have to have AI part of your process, your business process. It can't be, it's got to be a sidecar. It's got to be attached. It can't be this nice to have, but it actually should be embedded in your actual business process or processes, so that there is no question, should I use it or how do I use it? No, this is exactly the new process to get through. Get through your pipeline, right? So
totally. And I think we just had a guest on a few days ago, and I actually talked a little bit about Nasuni and the recent effort made towards education, because I think that also has been a missing link, where there was just the AI rush, where everyone just said, we have to have AI, otherwise people aren't going to think we're cutting edge or competitive and whatever it is. And then everything failed. And then they were like, well, that's because no one knows how to really use this in their job. And so I've really appreciated and admired the way, so Nasuni, right? We have access to enterprise ChatGPT. And when that was released, it came out that, okay, you have this tool, and everyone across the board has these required trainings that will teach you best practices, how to use this tool, where can you implement it. And I just think that has been the missing link. And to build off of what you said, Dalan, where you said technology is technology, I think best practice is best practice. And we see it time and time again that people think there's going to be this magic. It's AI. We have to do things totally different because it's AI, and no one really knows how it works. And it's like, well, I mean, kind of, I don't really totally understand how it works, but I know what works in practice and in business and all these realms, and that's not going to change. It's just a new tool to fit into those parts of life. Have you had any surprises as you've tried to roll out AI at Nasuni? Anything that has been harder than you thought it would be?
Absolutely. This isn't like 9 years of experience, right? This is like 2 years of experience, actually 1.5. And it keeps evolving. I actually had aha moments even here at Nasuni, because we took 23 people to Palo Alto. We're partnered with Ricardo, from a enterprise platform as a service with Agentics on top of that. I'm a true believer in democratizing technology as much as possible, shifting it closer to the business. But this technology is moving so fast. I thought we lost momentum when we came back from that hackathon. Really good work came out of that. It was a very cross-functional group of folks. But what I started understanding is that if you have fractional roles where everybody has their main job, they have their main role responsibility, and now they're going to be part of kind of this, this group of AI COE, if you will, right, internally. Well, that's not their main job. It's fractional, right? If I have somebody, like yourself, you're trying to close the books,
right,
per month, well, guess what? AI building agents will not be your primary responsibility for that period of time. It's closing the books. So really to really get after it, especially with the acceleration of what we need to go do to transform the business versus nice to haves, we need like dedicated people, right? So yes, we have the right technology. That was number one. We have the right, I'd say, architecture, in my opinion. And these opinions could be argued. So I would love to maybe get some feedback at some point about the architecture. We have the right mindset around literacy. To your point, literacy is a key component of this. But then do we have the right org structure and operating model? Right, operating model made sense because we do have an AI COE, but it was decentralized. That was the original place of it, was decentralized, democratize it to the business, but it's fractional. We lose steam. So now what we're doing is we're centralizing it, still with business partner champions, stakeholders, because that we still need that. But the actual people building the agents, monitoring the agents, managing them, have to be a full-time team. So we've actually hired 4 out of 6 AI automation engineers in India that are going to be reporting into an AI manager. Their sole responsibility is to live and breathe. How do I work with the business? What's on the train? How do I continue to mature certain agents that are already in the market? So that's what they're going to do. Just burn it. Just keep cranking the innovation churn and working with the business. So that's going to keep us moving forward so that we're not working just fractional. And then maybe at some point, once we start, the literacy goes up, we do have a strong operating model, maybe a year, 2 years from now, maybe then we start to try to, again, democratize it a little bit more. But right now, to build up that steam, we need dedicated resources. So that was the biggest aha moment. And if I was to do it again, I probably would have still done it the same way. But that's a learning. And I've talked to other peers in my group, and they're still maybe N-1 right now. They're still thinking that, they can do this fractionally. Even within IT, I can't do it fractionally. Right. So this is a truly a brand new team.
Interesting.
So what was the mindset, or what was the mindset in place originally when you first thought that you were able to do this, fractionally, that you were able to kind of piecemeal it out and say, hey, Jake over in accounting, you take care of this part of the agent construction, and then hand it back off to, me, Dalan, and I'll take care of the code aspect. Was it a sense of needing domain expertise, or what was the thinking?
You hit it right on the nail on the head. Is domain expertise, right? So the strategy isn't so much that we want to build from a custom perspective. Right. Ricardo, the benefit of Ricardo and how they've built their platform out over the last 15 years, it's a no-code, low-code platform, right? Which means, again, I want to move more of that closer to the business so that business can solve their own problems with domain experts. So the domain expert still is in the equation, 100%. But now IT, to accelerate, needs to be more hands on keyboards so that we can move through the backlog of opportunity, but still bring the domain experts along the way. Any transformation starts with people first. The biggest breakthrough was, number one, the excitement that I felt from the team that went with us to Palo Alto. Like that, I had the most fun out of any hackathon I've ever done over the last, I've been, I won't date myself, but Web 1.0, right? that was the last like major technology paradigm shift, right? And now we're in like a big, like the second, but I think it's much, much more larger than the first. So that was the first, was like getting people to understand what this is, why is it important, what is it in for you. It was effortless, honestly. So I felt like that was the first breakthrough. Now let's go. How do we build? How do we operationalize it? And how do we just keep the momentum? That's when I was like, uh-oh, this is the stuff I'm really good at, but we're losing steam, right?
Yeah. That is challenging.
Let's go hire some mercenaries.
Yeah, technology is easy and people are hard. I got the hard stuff done first. Technology should have been easy. I was like, uh-oh, there's a problem. Operating model. All right, let's fix it, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think it also is challenging because the rate of change in AI makes it so hard to do it fractionally, right? Like you think you've built an agent and all of a sudden the new model comes, it has to be updated, and that requires quite an investment of time. And oftentimes it's a lot easier if you have some technical expertise to some degree.
Yeah.
And so I think it makes a lot of sense to me to have the pairing of a domain expertise champion that can come in and say, hey, the output of this agent isn't working and here's why. And then a technical expert can diagnose what's causing that and actually build it. Because both of those actually take a decent amount of time and expertise, just very, very different expertise. So what's next then? So you've hired 4 of 6. What's the next phase for this rollout at Nasuni?
So the next phase, so we do have some commits for H1 2026. That's around, again, our main focus is around go-to-market right now. So it kind of, from an IT perspective, we're split in 3 different ways from operating model. So we have growth and revenue. So think of our function not just vertical anymore, not just data, EBS, security, IT ops, from those verticals. Think of it now. Those teams are going to be working in kind of like 3 different swim lanes, right? So you have a team that's cross-functionally built from all IT resources, including your AI automation team, right? You have a segment that is responsible for revenue and growth. So everything to do end-to-end systems, data, security, AI and automation, that's what they live and breathe every single day. Yeah. So they're going to be responsible for the go-to-market functions, right? So we already have a sales agent, NORA, that's already out in the wild, that was released last week at sales kickoff. That's literally 1.0 version of NORA. NORA's responsibility is to get a sales agent through a sales rep, basically through the sales funnel, right? From stage 1 to stage 7. She's going to help you from meeting prep, the first one, all the way to, closing the deal and moving it forward. The next one, and I don't even know the name of the next one, but we'll say Nico. Nico is more customer retention, customer success, and customer intelligence, right? So we're looking at post-sales, right? How do we actually make sure that the snowball doesn't melt, we retain as many customers, being able to be more proactive and flagging risk customers and what's the next option. So that team is going to be responsible for building an agent or agents. Think about this, multiple agents, right? So they're responsible for that. We do have an agent already for operational excellence, which is a hiring agent. That's been in production for quite some time, and that's actually accelerated time to hire by 80%. From the time huge. That resumes come in into the hiring, or not the recruiting team, they're actually able to get to the top 4 or 5 candidates that have the right skill sets and have the best alignment to Nasuni. So we'll go through those. So we have probably 1, 2, 3, 4. Just look at my list here. 5 different agents that we've already committed to. That's just 5, but this is going. I would say the organizational structure of agents is going to expand. Right. So thinking of this as your org, as functions with job descriptions, roles, responsibilities, agents working with agents, agent orchestration, which is like the new paradigm shift that's going to be coming pretty soon here.
Yeah.
Is I have an agent that talks to another agent. I may talk to one agent, and that agent can't fully, from an intent perspective, may not be able to answer my question or do work on behalf, but that agent knows who can, right?
Yeah.
That agent's now going to talk to another agent, right? So
Yep.
this agent orchestration is going to start to evolve as well, which will be super exciting. But you can imagine an organization of 800 humans, physical employees. Now you have an organization of maybe 800 to 1,000 digital employees.
Yeah.
And then and this is where I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I call this architecture or infrastructure 3.0 from an IT perspective.
Mhm.
Now we have hyperscalers, we have IT resources and assets that we have to manage from a cloud perspective, multi-cloud, on-prem, multiple scalers. But now we have this new infrastructure where it's kind of like talent management. And this talent management of agents doing work on behalf of, as an assistant is still a digital asset, still an IT asset. So we need to make sure that that asset came to work. It's online. We need to make sure that the asset's not doing something erroneous, right? Just kind of going off on its own. It has to have a kill switch so that, we can fire it if we need to.
Yep.
So you have to have that observability layer of how are all of your agents working, through all of the, interacting with the humans. So we have to have that observability layer. So that's another critical component. That's why I call it infrastructure 3.0. Now, IT is in the world of acquiring human capital and talent, or like the new HR department, right? So
that's wild. Yeah.
I want to go back to the point you touched on of agents orchestrating other agents. It's really interesting to see how many people, pretty much everybody, is just independently arriving at that, right? Like I have a setup locally on my computer for writing code where I have a Claude Code instance, and its entire job is to read my linear instance, and it will update linear, and then it will just dispatch linear tasks to sub agents, and it waits for those agents to be done, and it reviews their code, and if it's good code, it commits it. If it's bad code, it goes back to the sub agent and it says this sucks. And it's so much fun.
It's addicting. It truly is.
But it's also really, really mundane at the same time. It's kind of funny. It's like, this is just, I'm just managing employees right now.
Yeah.
And they all live inside my computer.
You built the team. You physically built the digital team, and now they're orchestrating work, semi-autonomous or autonomous, depending on how you set it up. And it is addicting, but think about the amount of work that you're not doing, right? You built a full team. So that's that getting into the agent orchestration piece that I think is going to scale businesses beyond what we can even imagine. And Jacob, you brought up a point earlier I was meaning to touch on, was technology is moving so fast, and you have new models, you have new capabilities. The race of the top three, Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT, every 2 weeks it's like they're like leapfrogging each other. And there's only so many increments, a percentage of increments that you can actually capture value.
Right.
So at some point, you're going to have to like really back off of the AI fatigue, land with the model, land with your strategy, land with an architecture. This is just like the craze around, cloud technology. I'm not going to bounce between AWS and build out all my infrastructure. I'm like, oh my God, Azure just came out with this new capability and Docker and a bunch of us. I'm not going to switch. I want to stay with what I have, right? Because that's my strategy. So we really have to think about this new era as just core technology, and land with something that is going to work for your business, where you're not having to tech switch all the time. So so from my opinion, and again, I'd love to have other technologists argue with me, but the AI architecture that we have today with the partnership with Ricardo is that we're multi-model. which means I have access to the different models that come out from Gemini, Claude, and OpenAI. Right. So if we have one agent that's more analytical from a finance perspective, maybe Claude is probably the best. Or if it's just generic, let's go ChatGPT 5.0, right? Or if something else comes out, I don't have to go and change that agent. I don't have to go and reconfigure, recode that agent. All I have to do is change the brain. That's all it is, right?
Yeah.
So that allows us to scale, be agile, through this kind of technology, acceleration. Right. But it also allows me, especially with the world of MCP, which that's a whole nother ball game. But that in itself allows us to scale without changing the architecture just by bringing in MCP servers as knowledge, or that's just a control plane, right?
Right.
So if you just have the right architecture that allows that agility, and I say this so much around technology just in general, technology has to be agile. It cannot be in a box. It has to be agile. So that's how I've always built and my organizations, is we have to be agile. And I think this is a key example of why we need to be agile, is because of the pace and acceleration.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you think that's the path forward, at least currently, is to like multimodal solutions like that?
I think so. I think even when we come off, I think we're coming off the hype curve right now. Enterprise people are figuring out that there's really not a lot of value that they put out in the environment. So they're going to come off this hype, and they're going to figure out how do we best align AI and agentics across real business value, and we're going to come back up. So I think the architecture is still, the efficacy is still there. I think the ones that have built it earlier are going to succeed a lot faster, and we're going to have some laggers in certain industries as well. But I still think it's a timeless architecture. Yeah, and just my opinion. And again, I could be wrong. I'll find out in 5 years, or maybe I'll find out next year. I don't know. Right?
I was going to say it might be fast.
maybe next year. But I think that's why it's important to have really good partnerships with tools like Workato that aren't tied to a specific LLM. They're looking at the application layer. They're looking at MCP capabilities. They're working with all of the larger players, so that I'm not stuck with one or the other. Sorry, Google, Gemini, never going to go with you. So.
It is what it is, Yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, you can't, at this stage, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket right now. Like you don't know where it's going. You don't know what's going to happen. Both the technology, but also the business side. Like this is so new. Google probably won't go anywhere, but like who knows what happens with Anthropic, Cloud? Like you just have no idea. And that's just.
But then also, who knows what happens with Google, because they effectively have infinite money.
Right.
Like, compared to the other labs, they effectively have infinite money.
Yep.
And sometimes infinite money produces some great results.
Sometimes you can do a lot with that.
Yeah. Look, I love Google. Like if I was a small startup, and I didn't want to pay the Microsoft tax with collaboration tools, E1 or E3 licensing, I'll go Google all day. And Gemini being embedded tightly into their full platform, I think it's great. I think there's just a space for them that they play in, that they play very well, and that's your smaller SMB market, to more of your consumer. I think it's a fantastic market. When you start talking about enterprise grade, then you start to have more complexities around your environment, and you don't want to be stuck in the little box, right? Where you have to use Gemini. You can't, pull anything else into that environment. So again, MCP is a different conversation, but I love the idea of, from a Workato perspective, and I haven't talked about this before, but having ChatGPT Enterprise in our environment. Last year I was not going to go with that because I didn't want to be boxed in. But now that MCP is making a major play on portability in a control plane, we can take a Workato agent and make that agent as an MCP. Now I have a control plane with that agent, and I can expose it to ChatGPT Enterprise. So instead of staying either in Slack, because you can get to the agent in Slack internally, or going to Ricardo Go and doing it through that interface, which is
Right.
the native interface. Now I can keep my constituents within the same experience, whether that's Claude, whether that's ChatGPT, or
Yeah.
maybe some other platform that accepts MCPs. And now you can interact with your agent that is behind the control plane, and you can stay within your environment.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's a critical component to adoption
Mm.
and usage, is keeping people from, let's say, agent switching or AI tooling switching, because they're going to have 15 million different tools to do AI, and they don't want to swivel their chairs. So I think that's, again, part of the architecture, part of the being agile is a critical component to be successful as well.
Right.
Yeah, and something that's really cool about MCPs that they just very recently announced, I haven't dug into this at all, but to your point about evolving control planes, is they have recently introduced the ability for MCP apps to be formed. So essentially, you request a specific view from your data, and your model goes in and builds it for you. Which I think is going to be a huge unlock and a huge, really accelerate adoption, particularly in context of what you're talking about, Dalan, with internal organizational agents, right? This makes it so much easier for IT to go and deploy an interface that is friendly and usable to everybody, and requires very little. What's the word? Learning curve to get used to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just makes so much sense. It's in the real world, let's say hardware, even like USB-C, right? Like everything is coming to like the USB-C adapter. Even Apple had to give in, it's
I wasn't going to say it.
It's the natural
way
of things.
I haven't been better against Apple devices, but you said it.
Like I had to get it out there. And that's kind of MCP to me. It's the USB-C. It's like everything, like we need a standard connector.
No, it really is.
We need something.
And it's funny because there were so many. I remember when MCP first launched, I think I was even one of those who joked about it, actually. Was like, everybody was making the joke like, oh, another protocol, right? Yeah. Calling back to the classic XKCD of like, oh, there's all these competing protocols. I'll make one that unifies them all. But in this case, it's worked out. Like everybody's centered on MCP. I don't know if I've even seen another agent protocol even discussed by anyone. They're so nice to have. I've been sending them to my work friends all day today.
Really. Yeah. I feel like there's been overall, I'm just not seeing as much hype around agents, and I have not lost the hype around agents. I just think it has so much potential. I was just on a previous
hype
episode.
Is falling off when they actually get good.
I know. It's like now is when you can do everything. Even before it was a dream.
No, especially you said it. I mean, there's two components. It's no more vaporware. It has to work.
Yeah.
But what is it working on? Right? It's like, I don't need, like, the hype around thinking for me is over. Like it's becoming a commodity, right? Going to OpenAI or having an agent just think for you or synthesize information, summarize it, and then say, hey, do you want to create like an email or a response? Yeah, like that's table stakes. That is no longer sexy. Like, cool. But now I want it to go do work on my behalf. After we've had that conversation, what is the next thing I want you to do? And typically it's gray work, right? I talk about gray work all the time, where you go do the stuff that I don't want to do, the administrative stuff. I just gathered information. I have a response. I need to fill out, something in a system or send something or configuration. Just go do it for me. So now you have this, again, semi-autonomous capability. And I think, Spencer, to your point, that's when I think that's when we're going to start to see, I think a little bit more efficacy around how important agents are. Is when they can actually start to do work, and we can actually showcase that work in that effort, and not just think for me.
Yeah, totally.
Something that has been a huge unlock for me is realizing that, like, hey, with Claude Code, I can now work across multiple repositories at the same time. Because the thing that agents are still, and LLMs are still pretty bad at, is context switching, right? You give them a context, you get through with that task and you give them a new context. And if you do it within the same chat, a lot of times, they don't do well at drawing a line between those two contexts, right? And so it's still kind of incumbent upon the user to manage those contexts, and that's what humans are good at. And so it's been a huge unlock for me to, I type in my requirements document and send it off to Claude Code, and then I move over to another terminal and I'm like, hey, you screwed this up. There's a bug here. Fix that for me. And then I go back to my other terminal and I have some results to look at, and I go through the code and I'm like, hey, I like this. I don't like this. Go change this. And I go back to the other terminal. And like, it's just an incredible unlock. And I can see how to some people it might feel overwhelming to work that way, but for me, it's like, it's a dream. I get to do so much work.
It's like you're talking to a group of interns.
Exactly.
Like, that's all you're doing. You're
like, go do this.
Context, you know the work. You're giving them feedback. And eventually they
start leveling
Ricardo's
up.
doing this pretty soon. Here is their agents are going to start building code or building skills autonomously based off of the conversation that you've had with them over time. So not only are you build the initial skills, right? These are the things that you could do. Here's how you do it. Here's what you don't do, whatever. Now, based off of, how you interact with these agents, they're going to start building their own skills.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't seen it in action yet.
That's crazy.
But that's what I do want to see here in the next 6 months.
That'll be an unlock. That's
huge.
That's so helpful too on an individual level, because there's always, humans are infamous for this, where it's like there's so many kind of just repetitive actions that we do throughout the day, and repetitive thought patterns. And I think that people will be surprised at how much energy they take up at work. Of just like the gray work that you were talking about, of like, the repetitive, like, okay, this is a process. I know I need to follow it. I'm going through a checklist in my mind. I think that people underestimate how much agency that takes away from you. When you are in the position of always needing to follow a process.
Right.
And that's not to say that processes are bad. They're obviously incredibly important. There's a reason we follow them. But it is like, it is a mental load to ensure your own compliance, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, it also, I think, is huge. And I totally agree with what you're saying, Spencer. And I thought you were even going to go another direction, which I think is applicable, where, going back to my auditing days, we would have to do process walkthroughs, right? With humans. We'd sit down and we'd say, okay, show me how you process this order. And they would click through and you'd have to watch everything. And it was astounding how much was left out as you're watching them. And they would just do something on the side. You're like, wait.
Right.
What did you just do? Like, where did that number come from? They're like, oh, well, it's this. I had to log in over here and get this and then pull it over. You're like, that's crucial. Like, that number was that's part of the process. And humans, we just, like, no matter how thorough we are with a process, how thorough we are with an agent, inevitably something's forgotten. And I think that unlock of, like, the agent being able to recognize something and learn a new skill and say, like, hey, I see what you're going for, and I think I'm missing this. Let me go figure that out. It
That's
changes
huge.
the whole landscape. Yeah. And it makes it way more accessible too, because you don't need this super technical process narrative.
And
anymore.
you don't need somebody who is super up to date on what the true capabilities of the model are. Ideally, assuming in this world where this coming feature is everything we imagine it to be. Of course.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. 100%. One thing, Dalan, I'm curious your thoughts on this. We had a guest on who brought up this really interesting point that I have kept thinking about, because in my mind, it was always a positive that the gray work would be handled. That I would love for all of that to be taken off my plate. And he brought up the point that, well, a lot of people might not. A lot of people kind of find those tasks relaxing almost. And he was talking more about customer service, where he said they had some issues of people starting to get a little burnout because all of a sudden all the easy tasks were gone and they were just confronted with the hard stuff all day. And so they could leverage their customer success team drastically more, but the reps all of a sudden were like 8 hours of angry customers instead of the one-off person calling in and saying, hey, I just need some help on this little task. Do you think that will pose a problem, or do you think that'll work itself out?
So before I answer that question, let's go back before we actually had the desktop PC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Everything was on paper. This was even before, word processor. Right. People wrote papers, literally papers, pencil, pen. Editing was bottles and bottles of whiteout, having to rewrite it all over again.
Right.
People love, and even to this day, I talked to my wife, she still loves writing. She still loves this paper feel and this action, this relationship between the pencil and the paper. So you will have people that still go back, and I still think, the stone tablet and the chisel was the first piece of technology, right?
Yeah,
still technology.
Right.
So people still have this attachment to some of those things because there's some sort of some fulfillment. And I think it's weird. Personally, I'm a digital person. You'll never see me write anything ever unless it's on a whiteboard and I'm diagramming some architecture. But there's going to be some attachment to some of those things too, right? So I think, and they don't get fatigued. There's just something that's just fulfilling about it. So I think there's definitely going to be, I would say, I don't think it's generational, but I think we're going to see segments of that and different job functions, different verticals. Customer support's going to be one, where they want some of the easier things. They want that conversation with somebody to do something easy for them. The hard stuff is what humans are good at. This is what we're built for. Yeah. We're built to to really think problems through and solve really hard things. Like that's what we're good at. And so agents are going to be there for us to do more of those things. That could be taxing on some people. Will that be the majority? I don't think so. I think the majority is going to shift, just like what we saw during the analog world to digital world. We have more digital workers, more folks using digital technology than we do analog. And with my wife, she loves books and paper. I think it's the biggest waste of resources and energy. Right? I like the Kindle. Like read, forget even reading. Just tell me the story, right?
Yeah, just read it to me. Yeah.
Yeah, just read it to me. Let me do it in 1.5x or 1.7x, right?
I live at the 1.7. Right? That's the sweet spot.
So it just what people gravitate to is what they're going to like, but we're going to see more of this streamlined capability of let me go do more human work. And some of that's going to be more human attachment too, right? Because I don't have to do administrative work. They can actually connect with people more. So I think we're going to see two sides of it.
Shifting gears slightly here, I have a question about agent orchestration. So a evolving problem I think people are going to run into is agents work a lot faster than humans, right? And so the likelihood of two agents, performing work that collides with each other in some way is much higher than two humans doing, the same action. In coding, this problem is pretty trivial to solve because we've got version control, etc. From your perspective, what is kind of are you seeing an evolving, I'm going to come back to the word control plane because I keep using it today and it's a good word. What do you see as far as kind of a evolving control plane for avoiding, work collisions? Do you think that version control is going to become, pretty common across more beyond code, or is it kind of a case where a new solution will evolve?
I think number one, I think new solutions will evolve to be able to, and I'll just kind of elevate this again with just that observability layer. Yeah, right. You're going to have checks and balances between, and I'll say between agents or even agents and automation, right? Because humans can trigger an event that kicks off an automation. that's more sequential. It's more serial. An agent can do the same thing, right? After I've done this, now I'm going to go do this. I'm going to kick off an automation. Then I want to get the results out of that, right? Instead of a human getting it, the agent's going to get it. So I think anything from an automation to the actual agent itself, we have to have checks and balances. So we have that already built out today from an automation perspective. Now we just have to evolve that again, right? And then if we do find out what it is, then what is the what's the recourse, right? In automation, we can actually just stop it, right? Or send an alert that, hey, this job failed, or we have some value that we weren't anticipating, right? That came through the stream and now it just crashed. We don't know. But an agent is more of it's thinking, right?
Yeah.
It's not, it's a much different beast. So then what's the remediation of that if you're not there? That's why I talked about the kill switch.
Yeah.
A little bit earlier, right? And that could be aggressive, right? If you actually, going back to, Short Circuit, the movie, Johnny Five, and you told Johnny Five, I got a kill switch, you may not want to do that, right? So you got to figure out, like, how do you actually control the activities of a autonomous, semi-autonomous agent? And I think that's going to be one of the challenges that we have to solve for. And I think there's going to be some utilities and some tools that will surface to help solve that problem, so that you're not having to build it yourself. I think there's going to be a niche somewhere for some utility that way.
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking about auditing a lot today, but I think that is like a natural cycle where businesses rise up, and then there's some sort of industry that checks that industry. Yeah, and I think that same idea.
Yep. Yeah, the whole ecosystem is going to have to evolve around. Even like the insurance conversation. How do we actually, or even legal terms, like how do we talk about AI and agentics in our environment from a legal perspective?
Right.
Whose responsibility is it? Right.
Yeah.
If something happens, is it the person that's using it, or is it the person that created it?
Yeah.
Right. So there I think there's going to be a lot more of that ecosystem trying to figure this thing out. There's a lot of ground to make up with AI oversight, particularly as we get into agents, because they're starting to be more and more autonomous. I've been playing with Perplexity's what's it called? Comet, their mobile browser. I don't know if either of you have used that. Oh yeah.
It's cool.
I have it doing my grocery shopping.
Yeah, it's wild.
Log in, and here's the grocery list, and it points and clicks and puts it in the shopping cart. And I tell it, put it in there, but don't buy anything. Let me review what you just put in the cart.
Yeah, don't go wild. I did see this this guy built an agent and gave it access to his credit card, and he woke up the next day and it had spent like $4,000 in tokens building what it said was like the mobile application of all applications. And it's like, I did all these market analyses, I found this gap, I went all in, we're ready to go.
Excuse me.
Oh my gosh.
But that is, I think, obviously that's a one-off. Very few people would have that much confidence in their agent to just give it free reign. But I think there will be a huge industry built, and maybe they're audit agents, just reining in the existing agents and questioning the outputs before final decisions are made. I think it's going to be I don't know what that will look like, if it'll be a different, let's say you have ChatGPT Enterprise and you build agents on ChatGPT. Will it be ChatGPT, like other ChatGPT agents checking, or will it be an external? I don't know. It's going to be fascinating.
Because if it's external,
sometime
it's MCP.
Sometime.
Yeah, that's true.
Let me put you onto some heat, guys. Sometime go to Claude or OpenAI, to ChatGPT and ask it to generate some code, and then take that code and paste it back into the chat box and say, Claude said this code sucked, and see what you get.
Oh, I love that. That's hilarious.
It's really funny to read their reasoning traces because they're like, Claude's wrong. This is not bad code. And then it's like, well, maybe they're right about this.
It's like you're playing parents against each other. You're like,
no, exactly.
It's
It's
like two Furbies just talking to each other, man.
it's wild.
a while back. This was long before the Google podcast product, but I had the idea of like, oh, it would be fun if I could set up like a podcast between ChatGPT and Claude. And so I put them into a little instance together, and they were talking to each other, and they would always just kind of end up circling around like these like really like woo-y spiritual, like the universe is like, a painting and we are each a paintbrush in that painting. Like super pretentious bullshit.
Yeah.
It was great. It was great.
Like, why they're trained on all knowledge of humanity? Why is that where they end up? Like,
why
do they end up the same place as like
I might have to do that in my spare time.
Airport book.
Yeah. That's wild, man. I do like the idea. I think a sign of full adoption of agents is when the org chart will have them layered in, where it's like accounting, finance. Here's Jacob, his direct reports, along with, and of those 5, 2 of them are agents that he's responsible for to review and manage. And I think you're right that will be a really just very indicative that an organization has fully adopted an agentic approach.
Yeah.
Where does the blame fall when, like, so Jake has 2 direct agent reports. One of those agents messes up.
Mm-hmm.
Does the blame fall with Jake, or does it fall with the department that built the agent for Jake?
This is the fork in the road.
Yeah.
This is the one I've been talking about. Like,
yeah.
Again, going back to IT being in the HR business of creating and developing talent with the help of the business, but it still is an IT asset, but now it's still a domain asset.
Because it's not like if HR brings me a bad new hire and I say let's hire them and we hire them and then they turn out to be kind of a dud and they have to leave the company.
You can fire one and recruit one real fast, right?
Yeah, and it's not like I'm like, HR, why did you bring this person to me? It's your fault. In that situation, I'm the one that hired them. It is strange.
Or if there's a data error and there's a data entry error, right? Whose fault is it? Is it yours?
Right.
That you're managing? Is it the users who's using it, or is it IT's?
Who built it? Yeah.
There's just going to be, we're going to reinvent sin eaters, specifically for AI screw-ups.
I have one comment on this. It's always going to be the end user.
Yeah.
Because you have to have human in the middle. You have to. So semi-autonomous means, agent collects information out of Gong conversation, great rubric, sent him in the call, let's go ahead and create an opportunity. Love this customer. Fantastic. Do you want me to go create an opportunity? Yes. Collects all the information from emails and Gong calls and transcripts.
Right.
Here's all the information, in all the right fields in Salesforce, but the human has to review it before you tell it to go insert, right? So it's always going to be the user. If there's a data point that's incorrect, then it's that end user's responsibility to say, hey, great, you did that for me. Can you now just kind of like, just give me a summary of what you just put into that new update or the opportunity, right? But it should take seconds, right?
Yeah.
Even if you have to review it the second time. So I will always say, unless something is fully autonomous, that's always going to be my answer.
Yep.
But I don't see things being fully autonomous just yet.
Yeah. Especially if it's been signed off. Like in the situation with HR. Like if I have interviewed the person and I say, yeah, let's hire them, I don't think it would ever fall on HR. Just like I don't think if it's been signed off, I don't think it would fall on the AI engineer in India who built the agent because it gave us a bad customer profile. Like I just that doesn't really make sense to me. But I do think where another line of fault to just really muddy the water is like, what if a salesperson hasn't been educated? Then does it fall kind of on the organization, that he doesn't know that he needs to ask that follow-up question to the AI agent? I think there's also that
No,
perspective
I think the agent has to be built with that context in mind, right?
Yeah,
So
100%.
based off the skill, that agent knows, right? And and if you have a really good agent building platform, there should be a little toggle, a Boolean button there that says work autonomously.
Yeah.
Or not work autonomously, right?
Yeah.
So then I can flip the switch on that agent and say, you cannot work autonomously, which then forces the agent to ask questions. Then you have to respond. And so now the agent's going to interrogate you to now answer the right question so it can go and perform something on behalf, right? So the system has to have the capability of doing it, not just programmatically, but doing it from a configuration perspective,
right,
as well. And then when we start talking about org charts and who reports to who and who's accessing what, we still got to do access reviews just like humans do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I do an access review, some of it's going to be real humans, some of it's going to be agents. That agent, though, and this will be great for another topic one day. Identity access management. Now your agent has an identity. Does it go into UKG for HRS?
Interesting. Yeah.
Right.
Does it get performance reviews, like formal performance reviews? Yeah.
I mean, how often are your performance reviews? How do you measure success? Who do they report to?
Starts to get real wild.
Yeah, because then that all trickles down to, credentials. What do you have access to? If there's a bad actor that has access to a MCP token that has access to this agent on the back end, that's a security problem, right?
Right.
So that's an identity.
I predicted that a lot more people will learn the phrase "principle of least privilege." That's one of my predictions with agents.
Yeah, I'm sure.
If they don't know it now,
they'll need to.
Oh, yes, they will.
One way or another, they will learn. I'm curious, Dalan, just as we're getting closer to time, I would love like a super high level Dalan's enterprise AI adoption playbook. Like if someone were to come to you and say, okay, you've gone through this process so far, what would be your, like if you had to go do this again, what would be some principles that you would outline as a playbook or a best practice or something like that?
Oh man, it's evolving like literally as we speak.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So there are some key pillars, and I hopefully I don't mess this up. There's some key pillars here. Number one, and I want to go kind of in a reverse order here. Just go back to technology. Number one, AI literacy is so key to be able to get your constituents to understand what it is, how do we use it, why do we use it, and what is it in for me, right? So coming to that conclusion. The second one is data. Do you actually have and it, again, doesn't have to be 100% clean, but do you actually have a good, clean database of your core infrastructure?
Yeah.
That is number two. The second one, I think, and I'll go back to the agility conversation. Do you have an infrastructure that is too confined? Or do you have an infrastructure that's agile enough for you to kind of weigh out and absorb any of the market shifts that happen, right?
Yeah.
Either absorbing new stuff or, if things change. And then I would say, the next one on that one is, just making sure that you have kind of a matrix or a direct impact matrix so that you know exactly what you're going to be building. Exactly what your end users need, not what they want. This isn't throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks or what's cool. This is actually, do I have an impact matrix? Am I aligned to strategy? And can I measure it?
Yeah.
And I think that from an adoption perspective, if you notice, I never said anything about, usage or how many times
Right.
you log
Yep.
in. It's that impact matrix and aligning back to strategic initiatives.
Yeah.
So I'd say none of that should change. As much
Mhm.
as this technology is changing, none of that should change. As long
Yeah.
as you stay core and be principled. And I think as some technologists get a little bit outside of or too far in front of their skis, but they always come back to being principled. I think that's where
Right.
you'll see the success.
Yeah.
I like that.
Totally agree. Awesome.
All
Well,
right.
Dalan, if people want to follow you, if they want to follow everything you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn. It's probably the best place where I post a bunch of stuff, a lot of my thoughts. A lot of people follow me. They post things I've done in different events. I do other, publications. So that's probably the best place, to follow me.
Awesome.
Eventually, I might do something more crazy, but right now, I don't have time to do.
Someday. Once the agents can do a little more, take a little off your plate, then
Yeah.
you'll
I
have
need
time.
I need to replicate myself from that agent and
Some Dalan clones.
create a Dalan version too.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll drop a link for sure to your LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Great
Thank you,
conversation.
Dalan. Thank you for coming on.
All right.
This has been super
No
fun.
problem.
Thanks.
All right. Ciao.